So probably you can guess by the amount of hardware that's all sitting around this thing that this is my next little task. The main issue I've got at the moment is that the engine just won't crank over. The starter motor is as dead as a doornail. My job is to pull the starter motor out and have a bit of a look at what's causing the issue, which means spending a lot of time down in there. I think I made the fatal mistake, being an English bit of equipment, that I didn't spend at least an hour and a half talking and having 3 cups of tea before attempting to start it. Got to mentally prepare myself to bloody clean and jerk this heavy prick of a thing out. What am I doing wrong here? Always one nut left. Oh, okay. Joe Hughes always makes this look really easy. I did take the time to print out an extract from the technical manual of how you take the starter motor apart. You're going to be in for a fun day when you realise that you have to use all of these bloody special tools just to take a freaking starter motor apart. So in typical Pommy fashion, it's probably a starter motor that started life, that come out of an Austin A40 or something like that. It's progressively been added onto and modified so that instead of starting a 1 litre petrol engine, it now starts a 27 litre V12 engine. So something that's pretty interesting, it's a Rotax brand starter motor. So I wonder if this has got anything to do with today's company, Rotax, that makes all those high performance engines for Skidoos and ATVs. Be interesting to know. You can see evidence of the hand of man on it because we've got these castellated nuts that don't have any split pins in them, so it has been taken apart and put back together. But let's kick it off by prescribing some alignment marks on the housings to make sure it all goes back together the way I've found it. It absolutely has to have been messed with. These things just don't make it to any sort of level of maturity without assistance because they are so temperamental. Guaranteed that this is bloody Whitworth or some other obscure type of fastener sizes, so I'm going to have to go digging in my toolbox. Thankfully nothing's done up really tight so far. I didn't do this, but if you have a look at the way these nuts are rounded off, I think the last person that had this starter apart was probably struggling with the same issue. That's what I'm having, that can't find a friggin' spanner that's going to fit it. Let's go from the opposite end. Hooray for that. Might as well get organised. First impressions, I can see what looks like to be carbon and or coppery coloured dust, which could indicate issues with brushes and armatures and things like that, but reduction gear and all that stuff at least has got tons of grease in it. But I think I can see a problem already. Hand cranking unit may be disconnected. No, there we go. It's getting excited. if the jaw, starter jaw, doesn't extend out in a positive fashion, it's not going to mesh, so it's going to end up gnawing away at the end of the teeth here. So it's got a little bit of drag to it. It's a little bit hesitant to come out, so that's going to take a little bit of investigation. I think if I remember rightly from one of the many Joe Hughes videos that he's done, he mentioned that it's fairly common for people to disconnect these things, because if the engine backfires back, it breaks all the gears, so that could be the reason why. On face value, it doesn't look like there's anything too terrible wrong with it. Instead, we're going to focus on the starter itself, and already I can see a few potentially worrying signs. Now, I've got a little Woodruff key in here that I need to make sure that goes back in. I can see that the shaft is looking pretty flogged on here, and look at the amount of play we've got in the shaft for the starter motor, so that's obviously a very bad sign. We've got a nice selection of broken little screws missing from here. Positively leaping apart. It's like one of those things you have at the football, isn't it? Oh, and there's a beer in one hand and missing in the other. When they call it a hand crank, it's not that you can actually get a spanner on this and turn the engine over and start it, but the idea being is that you can turn the engine over, and each click is supposed to be 1 degree of rotation, which is absolutely essential when it comes to doing things like timing magnetos, checking valve timing and all of that other really cool stuff. So it would be good if we could make this functional. I'm going to have to try and understand if this was disconnected here for a reason. Look at that. Putting a conventional nut on there is not good enough. You've got to have a special tool on there. And I can see evidence of damage to the covers on the race of the bearing and stuff, so I'm pretty sure somebody had a bit of an issue with trying to get this on as well. I guess it's time I practice a little bit of concentration, seeing if I can make a tool for this. Lucky we've got a whole box full of these things, because I've got a feeling I may need a few. Already starting to tire of this repetitive work. Hand finish this castellated nut down to precisely fit the nut on the end of here, so I'm going to have a go at undoing it, and I think I'm actually going to use an impact driver to see if I can shock it loose. The proper way to do this is there's a special tool and a fixture that locks over the Woodruff key to prevent this from turning, but I'm going to have a go at trying to knock this loose. I think somebody's just been trying to hold it with a pair of vice grips. Let's see if this just doesn't shear the end off the tool. That's got it. Look at that. I love it when the plan comes together. But why they couldn't have just had a standard nut on here, no idea. Scribe mark. Ooh. That doesn't look good. That doesn't look real good either. Looks like it's been very hot and bothered in there. Remove the pigtail connection if I can. Oh, so there's the carbon brush that's come out. Every time I move this, there's all sorts of dust coming out. It's looking pretty grim. Yeah, so have a look at this. The retaining screw for this particular pigtail for this brush here was loose. And have a look at the colour of the wire. You can see how it's no longer looking vaguely copper, and it's got so hot that it's started to melt. Just like that. And if YouTube had a smell-o-vision, you got that telltale smell of burned material. All is not lost. A bit of material, copper from the commutator, has been arced off and it's fallen between the gaps. So that's something that needs to be fixed. But it is possible to carefully turn this down in a lathe and then finish it off with some sandpaper and then dig out the grooves in here. But I think I'm going to have to seek some professional advice for this. Starter motors come back from the local Auto-Electrician, and they've really exceeded my expectations in terms of the work that they've done for us here. So they've gone to the trouble of taking out the hole shoes, checking all the insulation and windings for shorts, refurbishing it and painting it with a anti-arcing coating on it. They've also refurbished the brush holders and checked all them for shorts and repaired the wires, and also managed to track down the correct brushes and have set the tension for the brush springs. And I've done the same thing for the armature and been through it and checked it for shorts, checked all the insulation, and have remade the commutator here and checked all of its operation, and to boot put a new bearing on it. So we're good to start reassembling it, and first thing we're going to do is get the armature into the housing and to carefully get the brushes back into place so I can slip down over the commutator. Now I want to do this carefully so that I don't scratch and damage insulation. So the location of this is very important because the bearing basically holds the end of the armature in place, and it's spinning at like 5,000 RPM. So if it's not accurately located in place, you're going to have a bad day. Next thing will be to fit the bearing, tap that into place. Nice bit of tappy tap tap. Snap the nut on. So I'm going to judiciously use my impact driver at low torque setting. And that looks pretty good to me. get the front part of the motor housing in and then do a static test. And I'll put it back together. I suspect that we've got some issues with the brushes not contacting properly with the commutator. Let's give it a bit of a go. If you see what the problem is, sing out and tell me. Alright, 1, 2, 3. Wells shears, jumper leads. Tap the brushes to make sure they're making contact. Yeah, so I think you get the picture. It's sort of making a half-hearted attempt at spinning. It's not getting proper contact between the brushes. I think I've mentioned it before. I didn't actually go to the effort of trying to bed the brushes in first. So I think that's probably my next thing I'll have to do. Put a mark on here for my starting point. First things first, I'm just going to adjust the connector, the contactor, to take a bit of tension off of the brush itself, to try and make it a bit easier for it to be held back into place. See if I can work this backwards and forwards. I've gone through and bedded all of the brushes in using the emery tape, reset it all, double check to make sure it's free. So let's test it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, contact. Hey! That sounds like the business, and it also looks like to me that there isn't as much arcing at the brushes in the commutator, so it's making a better connection. So that's a massive improvement. So that's the starter jaws. That's good enough for me to test. So I'll start putting the end covers back on, torque up the bolts fully, put some split pins in, put on the hand crank unit or whatever the bloody hell they call it. Get it back in our Cromwell and give it a test and see if we can kick it in the guts and get it to run. Alright, that's how it should be. It's getting really close to beer o'clock here, and I want to get some runs on the board, lest I launch into the weekend with this thing as a monkey on my back. So I'm going to leave you guys down this end to watch it, because I'm interested to see if the generator drive and the starter motor drive is turning at the same time. Right, 1, 2, 3, contact. Well, whoever thought that that would get so involved just to repair a starter motor so that we could get the Cromwell to start. But hey, it's all come together at just the nick of time because it's beer o'clock here, which means we're about ready to get out of here. So wishing you all a great weekend, and get your Armour tickets or I'll send Ron down to your place.